All right, Brian, welcome to the latest show of the Organic Fitness Podcast with myself, Colman, Power Organic Fitness. I suppose Brian is after starting what I would call the new way of production of food, the likes of it being grown in the likes of the middle of Cork City, and he started a project in Coachford that we'll get further on into in this week's episode. I suppose, Brian, say hello to the listeners and give maybe a little bit of a background of who you are and what you've previously done or what you're doing at this moment.
Yeah, cheers, Colman. So I have a business, Cork Rooftop Farm. We founded it around March last year, around the turn of the first lockdown, the first COVID lockdown. I was kind of forced to close down a wholesale fresh flower business I own. Like many people there, who were forced to close businesses and just stay put at home and isolate. And I live right in the heart of the city, on Cork City, on a place called Lavitt's Quay, near the Coal Quay, Cormac Street. And adjacent to where I live is a large building that used to house the fresh flower business, and it has a large flat roof. So anyway, long story short, to fill my spare time and my friend Ty's spare time, we started growing veggies on this roof. And the weather was fine at the time, so you could get out and do things. And like, I've got a shoebox apartment here in the city, so if I had been confined to sitting on the couch twiddling my thumbs inside there, I would have gone off my chuck. So only for it really was my kind of saving grace for that period. It kind of, for a lot of people it was, I think, like loads of people turned to gardening, and still there seems to be some enormous renaissance in everything. Yeah, it's just like the movement is growing exponentially. It seems just month on month it's taken off in a major way. So and really, I think that period of time was just the catalyst for it all. Just people just turned to gardening and outdoors as a means of therapy almost,
Yeah, and what was your previous maybe background? Did you grow up on a farm, or did you have any growing experience previous to this, or where's your mother and father's roots from?
Like I think every family in Ireland has some sort of a link to a farm, but like I grew up in Bishopstown in the suburbs. We did have 3/4 of an acre of glass houses out our back garden, so we were a bit different to most people in the suburbs of Bishopstown. So my grandmother and my grandfather would have been kind of very interested in horticulture. My grandfather worked in what was known then as Munster and Leinster, now AIB, and would have been the head of the agricultural department in that. My grandmother would have had a very green finger, and would have, like my father's siblings, including himself, would have been out working in the glass houses. So when we moved into that home then, when my grandfather passed away in the 90s, and I would have been doing a bit of gardening and doing a bit of growing, but just hobby stuff, and I didn't really pay much attention to kind of any notion of a commercial future in it. And then my father would have always had kind of a homestead garden, and homegrown food would have been a thing growing up, but so that, again, that idea, I guess, stuck with me, and it the seed was there, as they say, to start something, but didn't know what it was going to be.
And then I suppose off the bat, we're going to say your college experience wasn't based in horticulture per se. Am I right in saying that? What did you study in college?
Yeah, like I came out of secondary school not having a clue what I wanted to do. So I went to Limerick for a year, did law and European studies. That wasn't for me. Did a year of that, came back down to Cork, and I did a degree in computer science then in UCC. And like, I got through it. I wouldn't just say I was the best computer science student that UCC ever saw. But I got through it. I had the piece of paper, and I know a thing or two about coding, which has helped me in my subsequent business inclusion in the family business and the wholesale flower business. So I will take care of kind of all the IT stuff there, I guess, and all that side of things. And even to know to have that knowledge in IT is I guess invaluable in any way, because it, you know, so many things now are so heavily focused around computers and technology and stuff. So it's not been lost on me anyway. But no, it definitely wasn't going in doing a course in horticulture or agricultural science or something like that. There was none of that. You know, it was very much JavaScript and C, and that, nothing to do with microorganisms or anything like that.
So I suppose I want to even roll it back or even get more closer to questions on, like, what are the produce that you're growing on the likes of this rooftop, just to get the listeners, roll it back in, what are the produce that you're growing and
yeah,
who are you supplying in Cork City firstly?
Yeah, so what we started off with last year was growing in raised beds and soil. So that was kind of what we started off doing. So it was the most accessible way for us to start. We just built these raised beds and pallets with cheap wood, reclaimed wood. We got soil up there. It wasn't even compost. It was just, you know, topsoil is the cheapest, good quality stuff we could get, we could afford, I guess. And then we kind of topped it up with a bit of compost. But even at the time, it was murder to try and find compost. So that's what we started off with. We started off with, you know, one evening we went mad online buying every seed packet we could see on brown envelope seeds. And we just started into everything. And I think that was a good way to go, because, you know, we learned a great amount about a different cross spectrum of crops in a very short period of time. And it gave us a good foundation, I guess, in what to do and what not to do. And
what were even some of the ones that we made a major hash of? And what are the ones that you found very easy or natural to, with the green thumbs, or give me both ends of the spectrum?
Yeah, a lot of the time it was just, I mean, a lot of the time it was really down to our context, where we made an absolute hames or something. Like cucumbers, for example, just we didn't have a tunnel, and we didn't have soil at the start. We just had all the seedling trays growing, and we were kind of frantically trying to build them. So the cucumbers didn't really like that being kind of pot bound for too long, and you know, yeah, it just really stunted them and stuff like that. And then sure, aphids got a hold of them, and everything got a hold of them, and they were just rubbish by the end of the season, really. But tomatoes we grew in containers as well, but then with the way we did the containers, it was kind of leaching out a lot of the nutrients, and they were pot bound by the end of it. We could have had a bit of root pruning going on there, maybe would have helped them out, a bit of air, a bit more air holes on the pots and things like that would have helped on that side of things. But we got a good tomato crop out of it, and the heirloom tomatoes were unbelievable treasure to have out the back for anyone who was even half considering to grow their own any crop. I'd recommend just tomatoes, because the flavor is just, there's no comparison. Like,
I love it.
Yeah, it is. It's exceptional. So we did about 15 to 20, I think it was 15 varieties of tomatoes. But then even with that, it was a challenge to get it going, because like we didn't have our greenhouse fully built till late June. So it was we were kind of on the back foot from day one on last year. But that's because nothing was planned, so it was just go with the flow. And we were learning on the hoof, so we loved it, you know, so it was great. But yeah, we got a great crop of spuds, carrots, parsnips, lettuces, loads of different herbs, beets, radishes, spring onions, like you know, and chilies, peppers. Like we did okay, like, and then last year we started experimenting with microgreens and stuff like that as well. So yeah, we weren't afraid to kind of tackle anything or give it a go, I guess. Ignorance is bliss, I think, a lot of the time in those situations. So if we ever wanted to learn about how to do something, you know, university YouTube was always there. And I had in July I did travel to Sweden, to Ridgedale Farm, to Richard Perkins, and I did a course there in I suppose farm scale permaculture and stuff like that, and regenerative agriculture. So that was a huge, that really was what kind of gave me personally that extra go to really pursue this. Once I saw that setup, I was like, oh, this is heaven. Like, this is how things need to be done, and there needs to be more of this happening around the world.
So just for the listeners, explain even who Richard Perkins is. I know who he is, but just for the general listeners.
So Richard Perkins, he has a regenerative agricultural farm in 59 degrees north in Sweden. So he's multi-enterprise. So he does pastures, raised animals such as broilers, laying hens, cows, pigs, sheep, and he also has an incredible market garden, no dig market garden with wood chip pathways, and he has a growing season of about 5 to 6 months. So it's a very intense period where he's farming, but he generates enough revenue from that 5 to 6 month period to sustain his family and also to feed his family for the whole year. So his number one priority, he says, is obviously to feed and to have I suppose, an adequate supply of food for him and his family. And then secondly, it's to produce enough to make a living outside that. And he's been very active in educating in all the enterprises that he's done. And he would be one of the world leaders, I would say, in regenerative agriculture at this stage. So when I went up and I did this course, it was about 7-8 days. And you learn from everything from agroforestry to market gardening to pasture raised hens to key line design to everything about how you use water. It's like, and then there's some other concepts which are just mind-blowing that you learn about. So once I went to that, learning about soil, like, I think if people really knew the power of soil, it would just blow their mind, and well, soil, when it's properly managed, and the I suppose the power of it climatically. So yeah, it was an eye-opening experience, and that drove me on then to think, right, we've got the rooftop farm, and I think we had a business plan set out for the rooftop farm from kind of May, June, and we were kind of on the path to drive on with that, which was we were going to put in an aeroponic farm in order to grow as much produce in a small confined space using as little water as possible. Obviously, soil up on the rooftop is not really a luxury we have. Every time we bring up soil, we need, it's a massive undertaking, and it's also extra weight on the roof, and there's only a certain amount of weight we can hold on the roof. So the aeroponic farm was the natural way for us to go. So aeroponics basically is it's a plastic tower, and we have 60 of them, and they have these little holes in a tube going up, which are called ports, that you put plants into. And there's no water in the tower apart from in the tank at the bottom, and there's a pump at the bottom of the tank, and that pump pumps the water to the top, and that water trickles down, feeding the plant and hydrating the plant. So that's what aeroponics is in a nutshell. And in an 80 meter squared space, we're able to grow 4,500 plants. So it's quite an intensive way of growing, but a very productive way, and quite very environmentally friendly also. So that's what we'd identified as our initial money-making venture, I guess, as well as microgreens, which are a staple, I guess, in maybe so much in the direct consumer trade, although they are becoming more and more popular. But unfortunately for us, I guess the lockdown happened, and then subsequent lockdown. So that's been a very inconsistent trade. We've had consistency to a level direct to consumer, but I think now with the restaurants reopening in the next few weeks, that'll probably kick on a notch. And yeah, we've got quite a lot of demand for that from the restaurants now for the summer months and stuff. So it'll be good because I think we've kind of got our processes down on that. We've had, so there's I suppose there's different challenges to growing microgreens. So microgreens are basically crops kind of like pea shoots, cress, radishes, brassicas. You can grow dozens and dozens of different types of crops, but grown to what's known as a cotyledon or sprout stage. So they're grown from maybe 7 to 21 days and just grown to maybe about 2.5 inches. And they're packed full of nutrients. They use the energy from the seed to grow to that stage. So it's a very nutritionally dense product to consume, and also quite good for us on a rooftop because you can grow a lot of product in a very small area, and it's very quick as well to grow. So kind of ticks a lot of boxes for us. So that's what microgreens would be, I guess.
Yeah, and it's important that people actually can realize that they can be more sustainable themselves. Like microgreens, I tell people, I always recommend tomatoes. Like if you have even the likes of a pot, a small container, you could do any type of those leafy greens, whether it be spinach, perpetual spinach, it could be kale. Microgreens are a really easy one, and they could successionally sow them, and those have like higher antioxidants than compared to the fully mature plant. And antioxidants are just those beneficial chemicals that we're not getting enough of. Has your diet improved, Brian, I suppose, since you started growing a little bit of your own? Maybe your energy levels, or what have you felt?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like sometimes I'm so busy during the day that I'm like, okay, now Brian, stop a second, look at your garden and pick something to eat. You know? And being, I suppose, like, so it's literally out my back window. I look out my back window of my apartment and you can see the greenhouse and the rooftop. So it's incredibly easy for me to just walk out and get my food. And it's an unbelievable resource to have. Like it's so cool to be able to walk out and pick it, have it for your dinner, and then 10-15 minutes later it's pretty much on your plate. Like so I would say definitely it has improved my diet, and even a thing like having your own eggs, you know, like that's such a nice luxury just to have. Like every household in the countryside should have a couple of hens, like every household.
No brainer.
Like, yeah, you know, they're just so easy to keep, and just the benefit to having fresh eggs, the taste, the nutritional value they're an absolute treat. So we've 6 hens on the rooftop here, and we've 400 out in Coachford, and yeah, you couldn't send me a supermarket to eat eggs. Like I just not.
I'd be the very same with tomatoes.
Yeah.
Not the same.
During the winter, when you in them out, if you go near them, like if you try, it's almost like a different fruit. Like
it's not.
You know?
And when people say that they don't like vegetables, it's more so that they don't like the crap and the rubbish that they have been consuming on a regular basis. And I was one of them individuals because my diet wasn't what it is today, eating clean, ingredient produce. But the thing is, tomatoes I would have never touched. I would have never went like the whole idea of the difference between the different salads, the oriental salads, which most people mightn't even know. It's rocket, it's minsuna.
Yeah.
You know, tatsoi, all those things I never would have had growing up. Greens to me was either broccoli or cabbage that my granny would have boiled to death. You know?
I know every little portion of nutrient boiled to an inch of its life. But and like, you know, we've started growing the Asian leaves now out in the farm, and oh my God, it's just like when you have them fresh, they're unreal. Mustards and wasabino and rocket. Yeah. It's like greens don't need to be boring and watery nothingness, you know. They're actually a really interesting complex flavored, you know, vegetable. If it, you know, when you find somebody growing them in the right way, I guess. And there are lots of people, thankfully, more and more around the country doing it now. You know, it's great to see the proliferation of kind of market garden growers. Kind of, it's definitely something that's picking up a bit of speed, but like there needs to be more of it, I guess. So.
Yeah, and with greens being one of the listed foods that can be heavily sprayed throughout a growing season. That's one of the things I highly recommend, whether it be that spinach, that kale, or those salads, oriental or leafy salad throughout the summer. It's so important you try to get your hands on. Either find someone that's
Yeah.
growing it local. Secondly, find a box scheme because they're coming up. And I suppose that brings me on to what's the main goal, maybe, or what's the plan with Coach for the project you have out there? I
Yeah.
suppose expand on that point, maybe.
So, firstly, we wanted to grow no dig. What we mean by no dig or min till, I guess. Well, we don't do till either. We've put on a heavy layer of compost above the soil level with wood chip in the pathway. So by heavy layer, I mean minimum 6 inches of compost and minimum 4 inches of wood chip for our pathways. So that's like almost like a blanket over the top of our soil base, which is feeding microbial life underneath. It's a heavy layer of organic matter, which just is our real investment in our future out there. When we don't till the ground, we don't expose the carbon in the soil to oxygen, and you don't leach it out in the form of CO2. So you're not further contributing to that problem we have of climate change. So ploughing and tilling is contributing, unfortunately, to that issue, and no till growing or no dig doesn't. It's an input heavy form of growing, so we need that compost. We need that high quality compost every year in order to grow. So we put down that 6 inches this year, which will feed microbes, which will, grow our healthy produce. But we do need to top it up every year. So it's important that we're producing compost out there as well. So that's kind of the next phase of what we're turning to is compost and making that, kind of closing that loop out at the farm, I guess. And yeah, so it's really about being able to grow really high nutrient dense, delicious produce in a regenerative way. And kind of linking that then with the rooftop farm, because with the rooftop farm we have a unique setting and a unique I suppose context, and being able to show both sides of the coin, I feel is very important, because ultimately no one thing is going to kind of progress how agriculture moves in a positive direction. I think it needs to be multifaceted. So if we can kind of show both sides and as an example to people, and that's going to be a big part of the future for the Cork Rooftop Farm, I think, is being able to educate and demonstrate how we're doing what we're doing in order to try and spread that proliferation of growing and gardening and sustainability at home for yourself. So if we can do that in both an urban and a rural setting, then I think it's a very powerful combination.
So that's the main goal probably for the two holdings that you have, for education for people, more so than supplying a large or producing a large commercial area to supply restaurants, shops. Well, I know that will inevitably happen nonetheless. If you produce food,
yeah,
and you can eat, that will be distributed throughout the retail.
No, I guess like production is obviously a very important part, and I think we have employees now who need to earn a living as well, and for the amount of work they do, they need to earn a decent living. So it's about getting these enterprises up to a stage as well, where they're not only regenerative and ecologically friendly, but they need to be financially viable as well, because in order for our example to stand up on merit, there needs to be a financial basis to it. It can't just be a very, very expensive hobby. It needs to be financially viable, and in order for that, people need to put value then in the produce, you know. I feel that vegetables especially have been so devalued in the last, say, 10 to 15 years. It's incredible. Now that's probably come in line with, you know, the introduction of, say, the discount stores and all the rest of it. You know,
Yeah.
the 49-cent deals.
It's a heartbreak. It is a heartbreak. And for anybody who produces anything or grows anything themselves, it's the fact that they say that, oh no, I won't buy that salad bag that's grown by Brian or Colman for €2.50 or €3 because I can get it for 49 cents in such and such a shop, or I can get it for €1 or $1, which is not the same thing because it's not comparable. It's grown with regenerative agriculture. It's harvested typically on the same day and either put into a fridge and delivered to you with optimal nutrition. When the whole idea of it is, it's not what's typically just conventional against organic or chemical free, to say that there's some people say there's more in organic, some people are chemical free, there's more, but the fact is that it's sometimes what's not in it, it's what, or more so what's not in it. The whole idea of it is it's grown in regenerative agriculture, it's treated as in with utmost respect and harvested with the likes of harsh chemicals in its production.
No, exactly. And I think more and more people are coming around to that. And I can see it in the farmers market, for example, on Saturdays here. And it's, you know, it's such a pleasant surprise when people come back to me the following Saturday and they say, I opened my salad leaves on Friday and they were still perfect. And I'm like, yeah, that's what happens when they're not 3 weeks old when you buy them, you know. It's just, you know, when things are harvested fresh, like things like salad greens and all that, when they're consumed, you know, within that 24 to 48 hour period of harvest, the nutritional value is far greater than, you know, like days later. It does fall off a cliff a bit later on, but you know, the sooner you can consume those harvested lettuce greens, especially, not so much with the root veg and stuff, but definitely greens and all that kind of stuff, the fresher, it's just, yeah, it's medicine, Joe.
Food is medicine. I'm stating that. I'm shouting that for the last 2 years here on this podcast. Food is medicine. Yeah. See, iron, magnesium, all found in greens and in higher concentrations in those Oriental salads. They're literally the best thing you can possibly do. And if people are saying the food is expensive, if you spend money on supplements, I'd recommend you. Magnesium and iron is a typical one that people regularly take, multivitamins and vitamin C. My God. And you have the added advantage when you get it from greens or produce, you have fiber linked with gut health. You're on a winner when you're getting the best stuff you possibly can at the freshest, most optimal nutrition. Like,
no, it is. But it's you know, it's easy to say that, but like sometimes it's difficult for people in different situations. They may not have the income that they think is enough to justify certain things or whatever. Or they put more weight in, say, I don't know, their Friday night pints or whatever. I don't know. And I'm never going to begrudge someone their Friday night pints. I love my Friday night pints whenever we can get to have them again. But you know, it's like, you know, whatever you're putting in your body, it like, you know, it yeah. The if you can find someone, you know, who's producing it in the right way, and you're buying it fresh, it's just, you will notice the difference. You just will, in your body, in your energy levels, in your general well-being, in your mental health even. You know, you'll notice a difference. I challenge anyone to go on a 30-day strict diet of it and not feel the difference. You know, it's amazing. Like, I think, again, just coming back to my trip to Sweden, it was probably the first time I'd gone to a place where, like, everything we ate up there, everything that we consumed on those 10 days or whatever was from the farm. And I came away from that thing, I was just like, I just felt $1,000,000. And up until that point, I wasn't really doing it through the rooftop farm because we were still only growing bits and pieces here and there, and you know. But after that, I was just like, this is phenomenal, you know. And yeah, we've got people now subscribed to our box, our CSA, that literally started last week. So it's gas to hear the feedback this week. You know, we were putting things into the box and some people had never seen it in their lives. And it's amazing to hear the reactions, you know. like they didn't know what a kamatsuna was, let alone how to cook it, let alone what the texture or the taste or the what, So that type of thing is very fulfilling and rewarding to hear people who've never tasted maybe these vegetables in their lives, and then they're loving it, and ultimately it's better for them. Like it's to have that. We harvested it on Friday. They picked it up on Saturday. They're eating it that night. It's like happy days.
Yeah, and that's the future. People getting things more, like the amount of fruit and vegetables that can be grown in Ireland is astronomical. And for us to be shipping in, like we could say, go down the fact that we ship in a huge percentage of potatoes from outside of Ireland, and that's crazy when you think about it. Like, I don't even want to say the figure. A huge percentage of the potatoes that we're eating in Ireland and buying in shops are from not Irish grown.
I know it's a. I think for such a culturally important product, we'd at least be net exporters of it. But we probably are. But it's I don't know. But I definitely don't have that figure off the top of my head. But it's a no-brainer. Like potatoes should be again. Anyone a bag and put a bloody seed spud into it, it'll grow. It'll grow. You'll get potatoes, and it's again, and anyone can do that on a terrace, on a deck, on a tiny back garden. It's one of those crops that you can grow it in a bucket. Like it'll just grow.
I suppose, right, I'm going to quickly wrap it up, but I would like you to finish with maybe 3 vegetables and maybe tips on for people being more sustainable for themselves, wherever they are, whether they're on a balcony, on a rooftop, have a small meter squared housing estate, back garden where they could grow a little bit around. What are your 3 top vegetables that you recommend them to grow?
So I think it's funny because I did this something for my little cousin. She's like 4 years old, Anna. Recently, I did a little tray for her, seeded it up, and she's having the best fun ever growing it. So basically, what I did is I did a punnet of 18 modules, and I put into 3 of each of them. I put different crops, which is about so things like rocket, which will grow literally like a rocket. You'll be harvesting it in a few weeks. Radishes, again, the same thing. You can't fail growing radishes, and white turnip. Those 3. If you did those 3 and you set them in the ground now, you'd be eating them in a few weeks' time. And that doesn't matter where you are. If you're on a balcony, if you're in the middle of the countryside, or if you're, up Timbuktu, but they'll grow. They'll just grow. They really are prolific in terms of that. And with the turnips, you can boil them. They're white turnips, especially, I'd suggest this time of year. They're absolutely something. Again, you don't see them in supermarkets. White turnips, which is funny, because they are the nicest turnip out there. And the radishes, fair enough. You see them now probably coming into the supermarkets at 10 cents for a bag. I don't know, but if you can grow them yourself, there's no comparison. There's just no comparison. And then again, rocket, it's a lovely, or even any Asian green. If you tried something like interesting, like a mustard, or a red, or a yellow leaf mustard, or like wasabi, we've started growing out at the farm. It's unbelievable. Any Asian leaf, basically, give it a go.
Yeah, well, those are, suppose, are 3 classic veg, all brassicas actually, nonetheless. And I suppose what I get you to say even is firstly, appreciate, thanks for coming on to the podcast, but where's the best place for the listeners to contact you, or even get involved, or buy some of your produce from either Coachford and or the Cork Rooftop Garden?
Yeah, you can, I suppose Instagram really is where we put most of our stuff out. So go on to Instagram.com, and @Cork Rooftop Farm is our handle. So search us anywhere there and you'll find us. Or we're on Facebook. And we have a bit of stuff on YouTube as well. But yeah, Instagram is probably the best place to reach out to us and learn a bit more. And then you can order through our website as well, corkrooftopfarm.ie.
Brilliant. I'll be tagging all that in the show notes. And I suppose thanks very much, Brian, for coming on to the podcast. And as I always end these shows, stay tuned, stay classy, and keep it organic.